big old hard nut.
Nothing is in there.
Yeah.
That's what's in there?
That's what's in there. Hot air is in
Puff of
there.
air.
Cobwebs, puff of dust. And you can't see it in the picture.
Is there a seed in there?
I don't know how they grow. You can't really see it in the picture, but there's this little white, that's a pretty thin rind. And there's this little white sticky stuff that's in there, and it's poisonous.
Poisonous to eat?
Poisonous. The Bedouin use that on the tips of their little arrows when they defend themselves against jackals and stuff in the desert. That's what they put on there because it's poisonous. It'll kill you. Now read that verse again. And now you know what an arara is.
Want me to read it?
Sure.
They'll be like an arara bush in the wastelands. He will not see prosperity when it comes. He will dwell in the parched places of the desert in a salt land where no one lives.
When you do it yourself, when you don't let God lead you, when you say, I'm going to something, that's what Jeremiah's talking about. You'll be like one of these. Looks good. Some foliage. Look at that fruit. Oh my gosh. Juicy. Nothing in it. And that's what kind of person you'll be if you don't rely on God. You'll look pretty good, but you'll be empty, full of hot air, and actually deadly. And I think ultimately alone in a salt land where no one can live.
And what's interesting about you talking about perspective and people understanding, everybody knew what this Arara was.
They know.
And everybody knew what the salt land was because that was where the Dead Sea was.
They know. That's why I'm doing this. Because I think I need to know that. I want to know that. That helps me now.
You're going to be like a worthless dead bush in the salt.
I hope not.
It loses so much of its meaning when you don't even know what this Arar is.
That's what I think. That's what I
You're
think.
like, okay, you'll be like a bush in the desert, okay?
Now, when I'm a translator, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, Arara, nobody's going to know what that means. That's good. They'll have to find out what it means.
Right.
They won't just be able to skip over
What,
it.
like we're able to understand what it means anyway when they change the translation to just a plain old bush?
Right.
Yeah,
But see, we all know what a bush is, so we just go, we understand that word.
Yeah,
If they put Arara, we would have to look it up.
We would have to look it up.
We don't truly understand what it means
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it loses its meaning.
I disagree. I'm going to disagree.
Okay, disagree.
Having been through seminary, the biggest problem is you don't have the tone. So you get smashed into these classes that expect you to just spit the stuff out. So when you get to a word like Arara, right, it might say Arara, and then it'll have an interpretation which says bush. And you do the exact same thing and say, oh, it means a bush. And you're done.
But is that what I'm talking about?
No.
No.
But my point is that if you're saying that, are you saying that we need translations that basically say this Aurora and then have pictures that show this and talk about the fact that it's going to basically say this is a good-looking fruit to come upon. When you open it, it has nothing and there's poison inside.
I'm not even talking about having a study Bible with that information. I'm talking about interacting with the text. That's what I'm talking about. I don't use study Bibles. I want to just read the text. I want to interact with the text. I don't want to be interrupted by sidebars and little diagrams and maps with arrows on them, and that's distracting to me. I want to read God's Word. And those have a place, don't get me wrong. And there are some really good ones. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you're translating the Word, not preparing a study Bible. When you're translating, what are you leaving out, I ask?
You're watering it down.
I think so. And we can disagree about that. I'm just letting you know.
So if they had left the word Aurora in,
Then when I'm reading, without any little notes around, I'm going to have to go, what is that? And once again, I'm only presenting this to you so that you're aware that there's more interaction possible in ways that we wouldn't normally think of. So now when I read about a bush in the desert, I'm going to automatically wonder, well, what kind of bush? And I'm going to get out my $3 Strongs that I got at the yard sale or whatever, and I'm going to find out, oh, it's this. And then at least I'll have a jumping off point for looking at it more, because now I'm not looking for bush information, I'm looking for Aurora information to see where that, you know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. All right. So, where does milk come from? Sheep, camels.
Cows.
Right. Herding animals.
Us.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, where does honey come from?
Bees.
Bees. All right. So the point that God is making when he says, I'm going to give you a land flowing with milk and honey, he's saying, I'm giving you a land where you can have both farms and herds. You can have both. Because they were mostly herding, they were nomads, and they needed a place where they could have their own land, where they could have it both ways. They could have produce of the land and still maintain their herds.
So they didn't just have a diet of milk and honey?
Right. See, I always read that and I thought, well, that's an analogy for blessing.
Yeah.
It's just an analogy for blessing. It's giving good things, which is true. That's true. And we should know that. But what he's saying is,
A bigger blessing.
yeah, specifically, you'll be able to have your farms, and they'll be good farms, and plenty of land for your herds too. Both, you get both. The land of milk. See, we say the land of milk and honey, because it's just blessing. But he's saying, I'm going to give you a land with milk and honey. You get both.
So which one actually means the farm milk?
The honey, because you have anything that grows that you eat, fruiting, has flowers first, and the
that
bees
makes sense. I'm thinking of it strictly from this perspective.
from
of
a honeycomb, right?
Wild honey. Why would they need a farm for the bees?
Yeah.
Now I understand.
But even wild bees need to find some flower somewhere, right? So you've got these fields full of growing things with flowers, and bees can make honey. Yes,
Yes, thank
that's
you.
why it's the land of honey. Sorry, I should have probably said that. So, milk and honey. Now, here's a question. In the desert, we're still talking about the desert, what is the most likely cause of death, or the greatest cause of death in the desert?
Lack of water.
Vipers. Oh,
Lack of water, what else?
I was gonna say vipers or scorpions.
Vipers, scorpions,
Exposure.
exposure. Anything else dangerous in the desert could kill you?
Well, you could
Sandstorms.
fall.
Lots of things, all of those things.
Yeah.
But by far, and this is not, once again, something we wouldn't usually think about, by far, the thing that kills more people in the desert than all other things is drowning.
Yeah. Well, of course it would be.
What? Again, what? So backwards from what I would have thought. Why?